What makes a tagger roar? Taggers are said to roar primarily to communicate with other taggers. Sometimes taggers roar to attract attention or claim their territory. Sometimes they use their voice to encourage younger taggers to try something new. My name is Kristin Fraser. I graduated from Trinity in 1991. I've spent my career as a journalist interviewing newsmakers from around the world. On What Makes a Tagger Roar, I have the privilege of talking to Trinity alumni. We'll talk to taggers about their unique career pathway, and we will identify those key moments in their lives that help provide the foundation of their character. I am excited to find out more about who these alumni are and how they lead today. Today we're talking to Lauren Zamora. Lauren graduated in 2000 with a degree in political science and business administration. She used those degrees to help propel her to a law career, and she's on her second run for judge. We'll look at the pivotal decisions she's made throughout her life, where she followed her gut to move her successfully through her journey. Hi, Lauren. I just wanted to sort of start with the second run for judge. I know you didn't make it the first time. What made you get out there and say, I'm going to try this again?
Well, thank you, Kristin. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate that. And great intro, by the way. Yes. So right now I am running for the County Court number 12. That's a Bexar County bench. That means anybody in Bexar County can vote for that position. The reason I decided to run this time was after some consultation and thought. I decided the first time was a learning experience really for me. I really took that first stab at office. After I ran the first time, I learned quite a bit. And so I'm using this time right now to put into effect those things that I've learned.
It's always scary, right? We don't succeed the first time. We want something really badly, and it just doesn't work out the way we want it to. How do you get the guts to do it again?
Yeah, no, it's tough. I think you have to reach out to your circle. You really have to sit down and think about the choices that you're going to make, the sacrifices that you're going to make, because unfortunately, running for office is not easy. You sacrifice a lot of time with your family, but ultimately I've always been drawn to community service. So this is the ultimate act of community service in anybody that chooses to serve for office, because it is a difficult journey. There is a lot of people on your side, but then there are a lot of people on other sides. For me in particular, I've worked on a lot of campaigns, both the local level and federal level. So I was aware of kind of the background of what was needed, but I was always scared to take that next step to be the candidate, because you're front and center. We're working really hard to get our message out and what we want to do to the courts to make this serve our community better. And I think a lot of the skills that I've learned in life, I've put to use on this campaign in particular.
Let's talk about a lot of those skills, because I think you've had a lot of really big decisions in your life, right? Things where things could have gone one way or another, and you had to sort of think about it and decide how you were going to do it. So I want to talk about a couple of those. So I want to go back to high school, Lauren, right? That act of applying for college can be a really stressful thing for us all, right? I think especially at that age, we go, I got to get it right, and I got to know exactly what I want, and I can't make a mistake because there's no turning back. So let us in on those decisions and those places where you applied to and how that sort of situation worked out for you.
Sure, that is a difficult situation for any student. I was not immune to that decision either, or those fears. I had some choices to make. I was looking at UT Austin, Trinity, and Stanford. And those are all very different schools, very different places. So I think my first orientation took place at Austin, and I knew immediately Austin is a great campus. Austin's a great city. But after my orientation, I just knew for me it wasn't a good fit. I did not feel like I was going to do as well in a situation with as many students. It was a completely opposite experience when I went to Trinity. As soon as I walked into Trinity and got onto the campus, everybody knows it's a beautiful campus. So there's nothing, just aesthetically, it's just a beautiful campus, and it's gotten incredibly more beautiful. And so then just the programs, the people that were there, I don't know if I had a good tour guide that day or what, but it was an incredible time. They showed a lot of the programs that they had, really indicated to me that was going to be a better fit. I hadn't really thought about staying in town. I really wanted to be in WIT. So I got into WIT somehow. Maybe it was luck of the draw, but that really helped. Then the last school was Stanford. I was waitlisted. And obviously that would have been a tremendous opportunity, a completely different mindset, a change of environment. and it was something I seriously considered. But I decided Trinity was a better fit. I'm going to go with that. Almost, I would say, a week before we were moving into the dorms. At that time, you were living at the dorms, I think, 3 years. So at that time, maybe a week before, I got an email that said, "Hey, you've been moved from the wait list, and you have the opportunity to come to Stanford." Obviously, it would have been very last minute. I would have had to really scramble, but I had already made a decision and I was going to stick with that decision. My partner now graduated from UC Berkeley and loved her experience there. And I'm sure I would have loved the experience too in that area, but I had a different one and I wouldn't have changed it. So that was kind of the decision I had to make. But I think for me, staying in San Antonio was one of the best decisions I made, especially at this point when I'm running for office, because I can reach out to my network, including all my Trinity network, to lean on and support, who have been excellent and so helpful in really helping me in this campaign and just in general.
Excellent. That's really nice. What did you really like about your time at Trinity?
The people, I think the friendships that I had there, and those are people, not friendships just in the sorority that I was a part of, which is a social sorority. I was part of Gamma Chi Delta. And then also just the people that I met outside. Everybody that I interacted with was very interesting. There are people from all over the country, all over the world, with very interesting backgrounds. The faculty, just the tremendous amount of knowledge and specialty that I was able to access. The professors, just everyone was top notch. I felt like I got a very, very good education. I was about 2.5 years, maybe 2 years in, and I told my parents, hey, I'm deciding I'm gonna major in political science. And very quickly got a look of, "Oh, maybe you should pick something else just in case, just in case." And I did. I ended up picking business administration, which was a great program. It just really wasn't for me. I've used those skills since to run a business, but that was definitely something I had to struggle through. No, but I got to take some really great classes. I think I mentioned one. It was human evolution at the time, and part of that class was to go to the zoo, the San Antonio Zoo, that's very close to campus, for a semester. And we were all, I don't know if we were assigned or we had to choose an animal. I chose the gray gibbons. They were the monkeys at the time, and we had to go observe them, their behaviors, their enclosures, and kind of work that into our class. I love animals, so that helped, but just how it was incorporated some practical hands-on portion where I think that really wasn't being done as much as it is now. So those were some of the great things. And of course, socially, I had a great time with my sorority. I was the president of my pledge class. We still keep in touch. So that's just a great network of friends and people that have been in my life almost 30 years. So
I was thinking that Gibbons could be political, right? That is a definite structure there. There's a lot of politics involved in those colonies.
absolutely. That is definitely one of the things that we covered in the semester, is how, they communicate with each other and the hierarchical nature of their, I guess, community. So yes, definitely it was a lesson in how you live together in a community peacefully inside the zoo.
So graduation comes. It's an anxiety-ridden time for all of us. But what were you thinking was coming next for you? What did you want to do?
I had no idea. I didn't think is the honest answer. I was very angst-ridden, as you stated. So I did not know what I wanted to do. I feel like I had 2 good degrees. I had a really good education and some great networks, but I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I moved back to Dallas, Fort Worth area where my family was living at the time. I decided to take a gap year. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I needed that time to think about what my next step was going to be. Ultimately, it was going to be between law school or trying to go out and get a job right from college. I chose the former, and that probably was not the greatest choice that I'd made, but I learned a lot. I couldn't find anything. So I did find a job working for, at the time, Main Event Entertainment, which I'm sure everybody is aware of now, or has taken their children to a birthday party. But at that point, they were marketing themselves as a team building company, really trying to emphasize getting these big corporations, especially in the Dallas, Irving area, to come use their facilities for paintball or bowling or whatever. And there were some networking opportunities that came out of that, but ultimately they decided that I needed to start scheduling children's birthday parties, which I loved. I loved doing it. I loved kids. I still love kids, but I really thought, man, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So at that point, I started studying for the LSAT. That was going to be my next step. and I studied pretty hard for that. I won one of the LSAT prep tests in a drawing. So that was luckily an expense that I didn't have to pay, but that helped a ton. So I did decent on the LSAT. I think, I mean, I didn't do terrible. I did great. I think everybody always, when it comes to testing, you never know how things are going to go, especially standardized testing. But then there was another choice to make in terms of where I was going to go to law school. And again, those are the decisions that you have to make, taking into account all the different factors. And for me, one of the things that I kept hearing was, if you're going to practice in San Antonio, then you should go to St. Mary's.
And you were thinking civil law, right? You did some internships. Tell me a little bit about that. So you're thinking Lauren's going to be a civil attorney.
Yes, ultimately, I went into law school thinking I'm going to be a civil attorney. Despite everything that I thought, despite my interest in all things true crime, despite my interest in Law and Order SVU, my mother and I watching, Murder, She Wrote, and all of the things growing up, I said, forget all of that. I'm going to do something completely different and do civil law. And I quickly found out that was not for me. I had an internship in Houston at an insurance defense firm. I found out really quickly, I believe that people can be injured in car accidents. And so that is not something in the insurance defense world that they want you to really think about. So it just wasn't a good fit for me. And I came back and then I tried the civil justice clinic at St. Mary's. And that was really family law and tenant law for people that really just couldn't afford it. And that was also rewarding, but it still wasn't the right fit. And for whatever reason, I kept getting drawn back into criminal law, back to my original interests, back to where I thought I didn't want to be. So as I graduated from law school, I quickly jumped into criminal law. So completely different from when I went in. And I think that's a pretty common story for a lot of attorneys that go into law school, not knowing what they want to do.
So what'd your mom and dad say when you said, hey, I'm going to go be a public defender?
I got out of law school, and I think I said, if you want to practice in San Antonio, you should go to St. Mary's. And what did I do? I got out of law school and I want to be a public defender, and there's no public defender's office in Bexar County. We have a small one now, but at the time there was not one. So I decided I'm going to leave San Antonio, where I decided I wanted to practice law, and I'm going to go to Laredo and become a public defender in Webb County. Went 2.5 hours south. And one of my first days, you are required to go to the jail pretty often because your clients are incarcerated. I'm representing adults charged with misdemeanors and felony offenses. So one of your duties is called magistration. And as a defense attorney, what that means is you go into a room every morning in Webb County. We would do the males first and then the females. So that was the individuals that were arrested the night before. They come into one large room. I'm probably in there. I'm sitting at a desk with about 15 inmates, telling them their charges, some in English, some in Spanish, talking about what their bond is and kind of their initial rights. Well, during that first week, I think I was there, and I'm in that very, very old facility, and all of the power goes off, and I am legitimately stuck in a jail, with 15 inmates charged with a variety of misdemeanors and offenses. But luckily I'm their attorney. Well, my mom calls during that time, and so I answer, and just let her know what's going on. I say, hey, I'm at the jail, and I'll call you as soon as I get out. And I think her words were, we spent all this money on your education, private education, and you still ended up in jail. So I think that was their sentiment of what my choice of careers was. But it should not have surprised them. My grandmother was a court coordinator for a misdemeanor judge in Hidalgo County, and my uncle was a criminal defense lawyer and an immigration lawyer. As much as I guess I thought I wanted to do civil and maybe make the big bucks, it just really, my heart wasn't there, and I decided to take a completely different route.
What made that decision from moving from defense to the next step? How did you make that decision?
Yeah, I had been practicing criminal defense law for 14 years, and part of criminal defense law is the social justice aspect of it, and doing the best for your client and their families. I mean, these are individuals that have had the worst day of their lives or made poor decisions, and sometimes they are repeaters. But generally, you're doing some hard work. You're also trying to get clients to keep the lights on. You're trying to pay your staff. You're trying to pay the rent. And ultimately, there's no one else other than you that can do that job. So in 2019, there was a change in administrations, and I was asked to join the DA's office. I thought about it because it was a huge change, but like I stated, I was ready to kind of just practice law and not have to worry about the business part of it. So that was the big move for me. It also was a change of perspective. If you ask anyone in the practices criminal law, they'll tell you the most powerful person in the courtroom is the prosecutor. They decide which cases to charge, which cases to move forward, which plea bargains to offer. Prosecutors have a enormous amount of power that they wield, and in the wrong hands, with the wrong intentions, it can cause a lot of harm. But if used correctly, I think a prosecutor's duty is to always seek justice. So I think you can use those things for good.
You've been on a lot of different sides in the legal system. How has that sort of helped you to build the kind of lawyer you are today?
I think it gives me a perspective, a unique perspective that not everyone has, and that's one of the things I want to bring to the bench. Should I be elected? I think a lot of people generally are prosecutors or generally are defense attorneys. One other thing that I've been able to do is appellate law. Had the privilege, to move around a lot at the DA's office. There's a lot of different divisions. And ultimately, I had been a trial lawyer for a long time, and I wanted to try something new. So I do a lot more reading and writing and research now. It's a complete 180. I still get to court every once in a while for some bigger hearings, but that added to the perspective I think that I can bring to the bench is when you're an appellate lawyer, you're looking at the case from beginning to end, from arrest to sentencing to even appeal. And you're going back to look for issues that maybe didn't come up when you're trying a case and making sure that our convictions, as I'm part of the conviction integrity unit, have integrity and can stand, and we should be proud of those convictions. And ones that shouldn't stand, those need to be remedied.
I don't think that people understand that usually a court doesn't decide whether someone's innocent. They decide if they're guilty or not guilty. So that's a pretty amazing thing to be part of.
Absolutely. When you are found actually innocent, you get to go on the national exonerations, the list of the Registry of National Exonerations. We have, I think in the CIU right now, we're up to 15 or 16. So it's a lot of interesting topics that come up. Our criminal justice system is not perfect. It's nowhere near perfect. So being where I am now and getting to look back and kind of pick through those cases and really sit down and see, hey, what happened in these cases and did they get a fair shot? It's almost sad sometimes because I think if we had more resources and we were looking into these cases more and there was more importance paid to this, we could uncover a bunch of injustices and probably a lot of things that continue to plague our system. I'm hopeful that conviction integrity units and conviction review units around the country are becoming more and more common. So we like to talk to other counties about starting them in their counties. So we'll continue to do that and try to spread the word that that's an important part and it should be a part of every prosecutor's office.
So appellate work. How does appellate work make you decide you're going to make that first run for judge?
Yeah, when I actually made the first run for judge, I was in that division. Then I made a quick diversion to the CPS unit. So I think at that point, I felt ready to be a judge then. I had been a prosecutor. I still had similar experience to what I have now, but just not as much. But I think what I didn't have was the experience in politics, the experience in kind of figuring out a campaign trail. So that was something that I went into the first campaign knowing that was going to be one of my weaknesses. So I don't know that anybody is ever ready to make that step, but I was as ready as I was going to be. So I went into it with no regrets, thinking, if I win, great. But if I don't, I love what I'm doing. Very similarly now I'm in that position, but I want it much more. A judge may not have as much power in terms of the case in general, but essentially you're the leader of that court. Attorneys that I work with I have worked with for many years, both as prosecutors and defense attorneys. And it really is, just using the skills that I've learned along the way, both, academically and life experience, to have that perspective when I'm looking at cases. I think when somebody comes up, one thing a lot of people don't know is that when defendants and attorneys are coming up to the bench, judges know nothing about the case, and that is intentional because they're the ones that we call the umpires of the court. I think that I know what the jobs are in the courtroom, what you're supposed to do, what your duties are. And I think that court, County Court 12, has an important duty with being tasked with the mental health of individuals in Bexar County. And I think everybody knows that is historically mental health is underfunded. And with the resources that we have, we just have to be good stewards of that money, make it last as long as we can, and make sure that we're not sending people that have mental illness to prison or jail.
I know that community courts has been a passion for you, both in your first and second run for judge. Can you sort of explain what a community court is and how it's being used in San Antonio and why it's so important to you?
Yes, a community court is traditionally a court for individuals experiencing homelessness. That is a gap in the criminal justice process that our team had identified. They weren't able to participate in the criminal justice system, whether that be on probation or actually any type of programs. So at this point, what we're trying to do is get individuals who are ready to make that change in their life, that are ready to make steps to get housed, to address the root causes that are leading them to homelessness. Generally, that's substance abuse, mental health issues. We have a lot of homeless veterans that we work with. So we've really focused on that, working with nonprofits in the area for our first year when we didn't have any funding. We leaned heavily on all of our partners. They were very supportive, and we were lucky to have, I think, about 10 or 12 graduates that first year. We've now partnered with Haven for Hope to have the graduations there and even have some of the court proceedings. So we're going to bring the court to them and make it a little less stressful. It's always stressful to get to the courthouse, especially if you don't have a way to get there. So the community court you have a virtual option where we have different partners to let you zoom in. We're also bringing it, like I said, to Haven for Hope, where we have a lot of clients.
There's something great about meeting people where they're at. It just really does make a difference. You've had a lot of big decisions in your life, places where you came to forks in the road and had to decide where to go. And these things made big changes in your life. If you had to look back, what would you say was that biggest decision that you made that you're like, wow, thank goodness I went that way. That was what I was supposed to do. This is where I'm supposed to be. What would you say was that big pivotal decision?
I think there's a couple of them, but the biggest one, and this is not just because I'm on this podcast, was my choice to go to Trinity. I think that was a really big decision. I think ultimately, with hindsight being 2020, I am very happy with the decision I made. All the other big decisions I made moving forward were informed by that decision. When you are applying, that's, you're starting your higher education, and that is a difficult choice to make. And I really, really wanted to get out of Texas for a little while, especially and go to California. I am so happy that I stayed and I went to Trinity and had such a great experience there, and continued to lean on all of my friends that I've met there.
I think there's probably a lot of people who are happy you went to Trinity as well. So Lauren, I know it's going to be a busy fall, spring next year for you. Elections are tough. They take a lot of time. I hope that it's the experience that you're looking for. And it's been so great to talk to you.
Thank you, Kristin. I feel exactly the same way. Thank you so much for having me today. And if you ever want me to come back, I would love to come back and give you an update after the election. But yes, looking forward to what's coming up in this next year.
I'm Kristin Fraser. A big thanks to today's guest, Lauren Zamora. There's more information in the notes section about how to connect with Lauren. It's always so great to hear about the journey a tagger takes after leaving Trinity. It's a great reminder that our career paths rarely run in a straight path, and that it's adversity that makes us stronger. Special thanks to fellow alum Diego Flores and Corrado Creative for editing this episode. If you're a Trinity alumni, visit trinity.edu/alumni for information and resources. I would suggest checking out the Alumni Career Engagement tab for professional development events and support. Thanks for joining me for this episode of What Makes a Tagger Roar.